During Christmas dinner at my Montana cabin, I sat at the head of the long oak table, the same table where I'd carved turkey for 30 years. My son David raised his wine glass, smile stretching too wide across his face. To Dad, he announced to the gathered family, "May this be his last Christmas in this house." Everyone laughed. His wife Michelle clinked her glass against his, eyes bright with something I couldn't name. I smiled back, lifting my water glass. "To family," I said quietly. The next morning, when David found me loading my truck at 5 a.m., ready to leave 3 days early, the color drained from his face completely. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. The phone call came the first week of December. I'd been sorting through case files in my Denver apartment, old FBI financial fraud investigations from my 30 years with the Bureau. Retirement at 67 meant too much time and not enough purpose. "Dad." David's voice carried forced enthusiasm. "Michelle and I were talking. You should come to the cabin for Christmas. Real family time, just like when I was a kid." I set down the fraud report I'd been reviewing. "The Montana cabin? David, I haven't been up there since your mother passed." "Exactly. 5 years is too long. Mom would want us to keep the tradition alive." He paused. "Please, Dad, let me do this for you. I'll handle everything. You just show up." Something in his tone felt rehearsed, but grief makes strange requests normal. "When were you thinking?" "December 20th through the 26th. I'll get the cabin ready. You won't have to lift a finger." "That's very generous. What about Emily?" "My daughter usually coordinated family events. She's got that medical conference in Boston. Can't make it. Too quick, too convenient. But she said to send her love." I made a note to call Emily later. "All right, I'll drive up on the 20th. "Perfect. And Dad? Pack warm. Weather forecast says heavy snow." After hanging up, I sat with the fraud files, old instincts whispering. David had always been my difficult child, brilliant in school but entitled, resentful of discipline, convinced the world owed him something. He'd become a CPA, married Michelle 3 years ago, bought a house in Billings they could barely afford. Last Christmas, I'd noticed tension, whispered arguments. Michelle's designer purses, despite David's claims about tight finances. I called Emily that evening. "Dad, please don't go to that cabin." My daughter's voice carried an urgency that made me sit up straighter. "David is different lately. Desperate. I'm worried." "Worried how?" Silence stretched. Then, 2 months ago, he came to my hospital, asked hypothetical questions about medication interactions, how long someone with a heart condition could survive on wrong doses. "Dad, he specifically mentioned your prescription." "Emily, I know how it sounds, but I've known David my whole life. Something's wrong. He's in some kind of trouble. Bad trouble." "What kind of trouble?" "I don't know. He won't talk to me anymore. But Michelle has been pushing him about something. I overheard them at Thanksgiving. She said, 'Your father is old. He's lived his life. We deserve this now.'" "Dad, please, don't go." I thought about my son at 8, teaching him to fly fish in the stream behind the cabin, his gap-toothed grin when he caught his first trout. "He's your brother. Family is family." "That's what I'm afraid of," Emily whispered. I drove to Montana on December 20th, my truck loaded with supplies and something else, a small digital recorder I'd used during Bureau investigations. Old habits die hard, and Emily's warning echoed through every mile. The cabin sat 2 hours from the nearest town, nestled in ponderosa pines at 7,500 feet. Snow already blanketed the access road. David's Range Rover sat in the driveway, exhaust still visible in the freezing air. They'd arrived recently. I parked and grabbed my duffel. Before I could knock, the door swung open. David filled the frame, smile bright but eyes calculating. "Dad, you made it. Roads weren't too bad?" "Manageable." I stepped inside. The cabin smelled wrong. Pine cleaner masking something chemical. Michelle appeared from the kitchen, blonde hair, perfect, despite the remote location. "Robert, so good to see you." Her hug felt like a real estate, closing mechanical, necessary, brief. "The cabin looks good," I said, scanning the main room. My leather chair sat in its usual spot by the stone fireplace. The Christmas tree stood decorated in the corner, but something felt staged about it all. "We've been here since yesterday, getting everything ready." David took my duffel. "We put you in the master bedroom upstairs. Best view of the mountains." The master bedroom, top floor, steep stairs. Emily's words echoed. "That's not necessary. I can take the guest room down here." "Nonsense." Michelle's voice had an edge. "You're the patriarch. You get the best room." They didn't give me a choice. David carried my bag upstairs while Michelle offered hot cocoa. "Family recipe," she said, pressing the mug into my hands. "I made it special." I thanked her but didn't drink. The mug went on the mantel while they weren't looking. That first evening passed in forced normalcy. We ate Michelle's pot roast. David asked about my retirement. I asked about his accounting firm. Nobody mentioned money or Emily's absence or why they'd really invited me here. After dinner, I claimed exhaustion and headed upstairs. The master bedroom had been my refuge for 30 years, the place I'd held my wife as she died. Now it felt foreign. I checked the balcony door first. The railing moved under pressure. 3 bolts missing, the wood soft with rot. I'd repaired this railing 2 years ago. This damage was recent, deliberate. In the bathroom, I found my medication bottles in the cabinet. I always packed my heart medication, blood pressure pills, the daily routine that kept a 67-year-old body functioning. These bottles looked right, but the pills inside were wrong. Different shapes, different colors. I emptied them into the toilet, flushed, filled the bottles with aspirin from my own supply. The bedroom door had no lock. I wedged a chair under the handle. Sleep didn't come. I lay in darkness, listening to the old cabin settle, and thought about my son, the boy who'd once looked at me like I could solve any problem. When had that changed? When had I become an obstacle to be removed? At 2 a.m., voices drifted up through the heating vents. David and Michelle in the kitchen below. I moved to the vent, pressed my ear to the metal grate. "The pills aren't working fast enough." Michelle's voice, sharp with frustration. "It's been 3 days. He should be showing symptoms by now." I switched them exactly like we planned. Maybe he's not taking them. "We need the money by January 15th. The loan sharks won't wait longer." I know. Maybe the balcony. Make it look like he was drinking, leaned too far, lost his balance. Too obvious. Especially after what Emily said about being worried. My hands clenched on the vent. My daughter had tried to warn me, had tried to save me from her own brother. "Then what do you suggest?" David's voice carried an edge I'd never heard before. Desperate. Dangerous. "There's another option. Tony, the guy from county lockup, he's out now. Did work for the Moretti family before his conviction. For $30,000, he'll handle it. Make it look like a home invasion. Happens all the time in remote cabins." Silence. Then, $30,000 from what? "We're broke until Dad dies, and we get the inheritance. We borrow it. Tell Tony he gets half up front, half after. Use the life insurance policy as collateral." I stopped breathing. Life insurance policy? You really think he'll agree? Men like Tony understand collateral, especially a $1.2 million policy. My chest went cold. I'd never taken out a life insurance policy for that amount. "And you're sure Emily won't contest it? She's his daughter too." "The policy lists David Hensley as sole beneficiary. Emily's not even mentioned. Plus, we have medical records showing Dad's declining health, heart condition, high blood pressure, dementia." "I don't have dementia." "The medical records say you do." Dr. Patterson was very understanding about backdating them. Doctors have bills too. I'd heard enough. I moved away from the vent, grabbed my phone, opened the recording app. This cabin had terrible cell reception, but the recording function worked offline. I pressed record and returned to the vent. Spent the next 40 minutes documenting every word of their plan. Tony's full name, the loan sharks and billings, the forged insurance policy, the fake medical records, all of it. At 3:30, they finally went to bed. I sat on the floor, back against the wall, my own son's voice preserved in digital memory, discussing my murder like a grocery list. The boy I'd taught to fish, the young man I'd helped through college, the son who'd held my hand at his mother's funeral and promised, "We're family, always." When had the promises become lies? When had I become worth more dead than alive? At 4:45, I made my decision. I dressed silently, packed only essentials. Wallet, phone, the digital recorder, my backup medication. Left everything else to maintain the illusion of planning to stay. The basement had an exterior door that opened quietly. I'd oiled those hinges myself years ago. I slipped out into pre-dawn darkness, temperature hovering near zero. My truck started on the second try, engine noise masked by wind through the pines. I drove without headlights until the first curve took me out of sight. The nearest town was 2 hours south. Jackson Falls, population 800. I'd been there 1,000 times for supplies during family vacations. The town still slept when I parked outside Moe's Diner at 7 a.m. Inside, coffee tasted like redemption. The waitress, Moe herself, recognized me. Robert Hensley. Hasn't been the same since Patricia passed. You up at the cabin? Was. Family complications. She poured coffee without judgment. Complications are what family does best. I pulled out my phone. 3 missed calls from David. 2 voicemails. I listened to the first. Dad? Dad, where are you? Your truck's gone. Please call me back. We're worried. Worry wrapped in panic. Not worry for me. Worry that the plan had failed. The second message, from Michelle. Robert, this isn't funny. The weather's getting worse. If you're out there, please come back. David's beside himself. I deleted both messages and made my first call. Martinez. The voice was gravel and authority. Diego, it's Bob Hensley. Silence. Then, Bob? Thought you retired. I did. I need help. Diego Martinez and I had worked financial crimes together for 15 years before he'd transferred to Montana State Police. He'd been the best partner I'd ever had. Thorough, relentless, trustworthy. What kind of help? The kind where my son is trying to kill me for life insurance money and I need surveillance, wiretap authorization, and someone I can trust not to dismiss this as family drama. Another pause. Where are you? Moe's Diner, Jackson Falls. Don't move. I'm 2 hours away. He arrived in 90 minutes. Walked into Moe's wearing civilian clothes but carrying himself like the cop he'd always be. Slid into my booth without preamble. Start from the beginning. Don't leave anything out. I told him everything. Emily's warning, the invitation, the loose railing, the switched medication. The 2 a.m. conversation recorded on my phone. The life insurance policy I'd never signed. The hired killer named Tony. Martinez listened without interrupting, taking occasional notes in the small notebook he'd carried since academy days. When I finished, he played the recording twice. This is good. Clear audio, premeditation, conspiracy. But we need more. More? A defense attorney will claim they were fantasizing, venting frustration. We need evidence of concrete action, the fake insurance policy, the doctored medical records. And we need Tony attempting the actual crime. You want to use me as bait. I want to catch them in the act. The insurance fraud alone gets them 5 years. Add attempted murder with a hired killer, and we're talking 25 to life. He closed his notebook, but only if you're willing. I thought about my son at 12, broken arm from falling off his bike. I'd held him while he cried, promised him I'd always keep him safe. When had keeping him safe become enabling him? When had my love become something he could exploit? What do you need from me? Martinez made calls. Within 3 hours, I was sitting in the Montana State Police barracks in Helena, being interviewed by Assistant State Attorney Sarah Kim, 35, sharp eyes, reputation for prosecuting financial crimes with surgical precision. Mr. Hensley, I've reviewed the recording. She set her tablet down. It's compelling. But I need you to understand the risks. If we pursue this, you're testifying against your son. That relationship is over. Permanently. The relationship ended when he hired someone to kill me. She studied my face. Some parents can't make that separation. Can't see their children as criminals, even with overwhelming evidence. I spent 30 years investigating criminals. I know what guilt looks like. I know what I heard. Good. Then let's build a case. She opened a file. First, we need to authenticate the insurance policy. I'll subpoena records from every major provider. If it exists, we'll find it. Second, the medical records. I'll need your actual medical history to compare against what Dr. Patterson provided, Third, we need to identify and locate Tony. How long does all this take? If we move fast, 72 hours. Can you stay away from the cabin that long? They think I'm lost in the storm, missing, maybe dead. The longer I'm gone, the more desperate they become. Martinez leaned forward. Which is when people make mistakes. We'll monitor their communications. If they contact Tony, we intercept. If they come looking for you, we control the encounter. Either way, we control the narrative. I spent that night in a Helena hotel room, watching local news report about an elderly man missing from his cabin during a winter storm. David had called search and rescue. They were organizing a search party for first light. My son, playing the concerned child for cameras, while knowing exactly why I'd disappeared. Sarah Kim called at 11 p.m. We found the insurance policy, Montaigne Life and Trust, $1.2 million policy taken out 6 months ago in your name. Your signature is forged. I compared it to your bureau documents. Different pressure points, different rhythm. Someone practiced, but not enough. David's a CPA. He's used to falsifying documents, which makes him sloppy when it's personal. We've also located Dr. Patterson. He has significant gambling debts, 20 interviews with the state medical board for questionable prescriptions. He'll flip the moment we offer immunity. What about Tony? Antonio Tony Caruso, age 42, 2 priors for assault, 1 for extortion. Served 8 years at Montana State Prison. Released 16 months ago. Last known address in Billings. She paused. He's exactly who you hire when you want someone dead, but don't want to do it yourself. Can you find him? We're working on it. In the meantime, I need you ready to return to the cabin. 72 hours from now. Christmas Eve morning. You'll go back. Act weak, sick. Tell them you drove to the hospital, food poisoning, came back to finish Christmas. They'll panic. They'll escalate. And we'll be watching. The next 2 days blurred together. Depositions, recorded statements, reviewing evidence. Sarah Kim's team moved like a machine. They found Tony through a parole officer, set up surveillance, confirmed he had recent contact with Michelle's burner phone. The pieces assembled with the precision of a federal case. Emily called Christmas Eve morning. Dad. Oh my God, Dad. David said you were missing. Search and rescue is looking for you. I'm safe, honey. Where are you? What happened? I told her. Not everything, but enough. Her silence on the other end felt like grief. I knew something was wrong. I knew it. But my own brother, she broke down crying. I should have pushed harder, should have made you listen. You tried to warn me. I listened. That's why I'm alive. What happens now? Now I go back. Finish this. Dad, no. Don't go back there, please. It's the only way to stop him. To make sure he can't hurt anyone else. He's my brother. He stopped being your brother when he chose money over family. I returned to the cabin at 9 a.m., Christmas Eve. The Range Rover sat in the driveway, buried under 8 inches of fresh snow. No smoke from the chimney. I parked and grabbed my duffel, left my truck running for warmth, and knocked. David answered immediately. His face cycled through expressions too fast to track. Shock, relief, suspicion, confusion. Dad, Jesus Christ, where have you been? Hospital in Helena. Food poisoning hit me around 5 a.m., day before yesterday. Thought I was dying. Drove myself to emergency. I kept my voice weak, let myself sway slightly. They kept me overnight. Released this morning. Came straight back. Michelle appeared behind him, eyes wide. Food poisoning? From what? Must have been that pot roast. No offense. Hospital said bacterial contamination happens sometimes with undercooked meat. Her face went carefully neutral. I'm so sorry. We should have checked the temperature better. They let me in. David took my duffel. Michelle guided me to the couch like I was made of glass. The dynamic had shifted. They'd thought I was dead. Now I sat in their living room, alive and unpredictable. You should rest, David said. Christmas Eve dinner can wait. You need to recover your strength. I'll be fine. Just need some water. Michelle brought it immediately. I pretended to drink. Let most of it disappear into the couch cushions when they weren't looking. They watched me, studied me, whispered in the kitchen when they thought I couldn't hear. At 2 p.m., David stepped outside to take a phone call. I moved to the window, watched him pace through snow, phone pressed tight against his ear. At 3, Martinez texted me. Tony is en route. ETA 11 p.m. SWAT positioned in woods. Do not engage. Stay inside. When he enters, we move. I acknowledged and deleted the message. Dinner that night felt like a funeral. David couldn't sit still. Michelle's smile had frozen into a rictus. I picked at turkey, claimed my stomach still wasn't right, declined wine, declined dessert, said I needed to sleep. Upstairs in the master bedroom, I wedged the chair under the door again, turned off the lights, lay on the bed fully dressed, my phone recording, and waited. At 10:53, footsteps crunched through snow outside, deliberate, heavy, not trying to hide. 11 p.m., glass breaking downstairs, the kitchen window. I stayed motionless, phone recording every sound. Footsteps on the main floor, creaking floorboards, someone searching. Then David's voice, barely above a whisper. Upstairs, master bedroom. I heard the stairs groan under weight. 2 people climbing, Tony and someone else. My doorknob turned. Locked. The chair held. It's blocked. A voice I didn't recognize. Rough, casual about violence. Break it down. Make it look like home invasion. Robbery gone wrong. He's an old man. Fought back. You had to defend yourself. 30,000 buys a lot of defending. They hit the door. The chair skidded but held. Second, impact. Third. The frame splintered. Outside, searchlights blazed to life. Montana State Police! Hands in the air! Drop your weapons! The door stopped mid-break. Footsteps thundered downstairs, shouting, commands. The professional chaos of SWAT executing a raid. I moved the chair, opened my door. David stood frozen at the top of the stairs, face white with terror. Below, police had Tony face down on the floor, hands cuffed behind his back. A crowbar lay near the shattered kitchen window. A .38 revolver on the floor next to him. Martinez appeared in the doorway, gun drawn, eyes sweeping the scene. He saw me, nodded once, then focused on David. David Hensley, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, solicitation of murder for hire, insurance fraud, and attempted murder. What? No. I didn't. This is a misunderstanding. I called the police about a break-in. I was trying to protect my father. Save it. Martinez pulled him toward the stairs. We have recordings. We have the insurance policy. We have Tony willing to testify. And we have your father alive to press charges. David's eyes found mine across the landing. Dad, please, tell them this is wrong. Tell them I'd never hurt you. I looked at my son. Saw him at 8, gap-toothed and innocent. Saw him at 12, crying over a broken arm. Saw him at 25, standing beside his mother's grave. Saw all the moments I'd loved him, protected him, believed in him. Then I saw the man who'd hired someone to kill me for money, who'd forged my signature, who'd poisoned my medication, who'd loosened the balcony railing and waited for me to fall. You stopped being my son when you put a price on my life, I said quietly. They took him away in handcuffs. Michelle, too, arrested as an accomplice. Tony, already talking, desperate to reduce his sentence. The cabin filled with police, evidence technicians, photographers documenting every detail. Sarah Kim arrived at 2 a.m., surveyed the scene with satisfaction. We have everything. The forged policy, Dr. Patterson's testimony about the fake medical records, Michelle's burner phone records showing contact with Tony, Tony's statement about the $30,000 contract, David's own words on your recording hiring Tony. This is the most documented attempted murder case I've seen in 15 years. When's the trial? Preliminary hearing after New Year's. But they'll plea. With this evidence, going to trial means life without parole. They'll take the deal. 25 years. Eligible for parole. At 15. My son will be 73 when he gets out. If he gets out, she closed her file. Mr. Hensley, you did the right thing. I know that doesn't make it easier. It didn't. Emily arrived at dawn on Christmas morning, driving through the night from Boston. She held me while I finally broke down, 30 years of FBI composure shattering in my daughter's arms. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry he did this to you. You warned me. You tried to save me. But he's still my brother. Or was. I don't know what he is now. We sat in the cabin's living room, surrounded by evidence markers and police tape, and grieved for the family we'd lost. The preliminary hearing happened January 7th. David and Michelle appeared in orange jumpsuits, cuffed, faces hollow. Tony testified against them with clinical precision. The forged insurance policy was entered into evidence. Dr. Patterson's sworn statement about falsifying my medical records. My recording of their 2 a.m. conversation planning my murder. David's attorney argued for leniency. First offense? Desperate financial situation? No actual harm done. The judge wasn't impressed. Mr. Hensley, you hired a convicted felon to murder your father for insurance money. You forged documents. You tampered with his medication. You loosened a balcony railing, hoping he'd fall to his death. The only reason your father isn't dead is because he's smarter than you. That's not a defense. That's luck running out. He set bail at $500,000. Neither could pay it. The plea deal came February 3rd. David pled guilty to conspiracy to commit murder and insurance fraud. 25 years. Michelle, for cooperation, got 15. Tony, for testimony, got 10. I attended sentencing March 15th. David tried to speak to me. I turned away. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. I changed my will that April. Everything to Emily. Everything to the Robert and Patricia Hensley Foundation for Abused Elders. Not a penny to David. The cabin went up for sale in May. I couldn't bear to return. Too many memories corrupted by betrayal. Emily called me every Sunday. Tried to maintain connection. Asked if I'd ever forgive David. I told her the truth. Forgiveness is for mistakes, for accidents, for words said in anger and regretted. Your brother didn't make a mistake. He made a choice. Multiple choices. Each one calculated to end my life for money. That's not forgivable. That's criminal. But he's still your son. No. He stopped being my son the moment he put a price on my life. Now he's just a man in prison who shares my DNA. I live in Denver now. Quiet apartment. FBI pension. Emily visits monthly. I volunteer at the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, teaching young agents about financial fraud, the patterns criminals use, the mistakes they make, how family relationships can become weapons in the wrong hands. Sometimes at night, I think about the cabin, the stream where I taught David to fish, the fireplace where we'd opened Christmas presents, the balcony where my son had loosened bolts and waited for me to fall. I think about the moment I heard him say, "May this be his last Christmas in this house." I think about how I smiled, and I think about how justice, cold and complete, is sometimes the only mercy left when family becomes the enemy. The photograph of David at 8 years old, gap-toothed and innocent, sits face down in a box in my closet. Some memories hurt too much to display. Some betrayals cut too deep to forgive. I'm 68 now, healthy, alive, free. My son is 43, in prison, counting days. Sometimes justice doesn't feel like winning. It just feels like surviving. And survival, I've learned, is enough.